Hello students. Now we are going to continue with the chapter 6 life processes second part. First part we have discussed, that is nutrition in plants. Now this is the second part, that is nutrition in animals. Before we continue with the nutrition in multicellular organisms, before that we'll discuss about the nutrition in amoeba, that is the unicellular organisms. How unicellular organisms used to take their nutrition. Amoeba is a unicellular organism living in water because it is an aquatic organism, so it used to live in water and it used to take its nutrition from the water only, and it takes the small microorganisms or small living organisms which are present in the water, and it takes its food with the help of pseudopodia. Pseudopodia, these are called as pseudopodia. Pseudo means false and podia is for feet. So it does not have a proper feet like structure or hand like structure to take its food, but it is the extension of its body, and that extension is called as pseudopodia. With this pseudopodia, it surrounds the food particle and it forms the food vacuole. Food vacuole is formed. This food vacuole is allowed to take the food inside the organism body, and then the enzymes from the cell cytoplasm are released into the food vacuole, and then the food is digested inside the food vacuole. Then the digested food is absorbed and the undigested food is sent out through the surface of the cell. Now we look over here the diagram. See here, this is the amoeba and this is the food particle, and here the extension of the cell membrane forming the pseudopodia. Now this pseudopodia, it has engulfed the food particle and had formed the food vacuole. Now inside the food vacuole, digestion of the food occurs by the enzymes which are released from the cell cytoplasm. Now after digestion and then the digested food is absorbed, this digested food is utilized by the cell for its growth and reproduction. The waste which is formed is released out, and this process is called as egestion. Now again we can see the diagram over here. This food particle is over here, pseudopodia is there, food vacuole is formed, and then the waste is released out of the organism body. Now next we study about the nutrition in human beings. Nutrition in human beings, it takes place, consists of the alimentary canal. So here nutrition in human beings, it takes place in the digestive system, consists of alimentary canal and glands which produce enzymes, and these enzymes, they break down the food into simpler or smaller molecules. The main organs of digestive system are mouth, esophagus, stomach, small intestine, large intestine and anus. From mouth, the food is taken inside, then it is passed through esophagus. From esophagus, food enters into the stomach. Digestion of food occurs in the stomach. Then from stomach, food goes to the small intestine. Again, further digestion as well as absorption of food occurs in small intestine. Then the food is passed to the large intestine, where the waste food is stored for some time, and from anus, the waste is released out of the body. Apart from this digestive system or the organs of the digestive system, there are certain glands present or associated with the digestive system. These glands helps in digestion of the food by releasing certain enzymes. So these are number one, salivary glands. Salivary glands are present in the mouth. There are 3 pairs of salivary glands present in the mouth which secrete saliva. Saliva contain salivary amylase enzyme, and this acts on the food and in the mouth only. So we say that the digestion of food begins in the mouth. Then comes the gastric glands. Gastric glands are present in the stomach. So the digestion of food occurs in the stomach also. Then liver, pancreas, intestinal glands. These all helps in the digestion of complex food into simpler ones. Now just look over here to the diagram of the digestive system. Here is the diagram of digestive system. Starting from here, the salivary glands present in the mouth. 3 pairs of salivary glands are there. Then tongue is present in the mouth. Tongue helps in mixing the saliva with the food. Then is the epiglottis. Epiglottis is a flap-like structure which is present over the windpipe to prevent the entry of food into the windpipe. Then comes the esophagus. Esophagus is also called as the food pipe and is meant for peristalsis. Peristalsis is the contraction and relaxation movement, rhythmic contraction and relaxation movement of the alimentary canal or the esophagus to move or to push the food forward. Then comes the stomach. In the stomach, food is digested. Then after the stomach, the food enters into the duodenum. Duodenum receives the secretion from the liver, that is the bile juice, but not directly from the liver because bile juice is stored in gallbladder. From the liver, bile juice is released and is stored in the gallbladder. Then from gallbladder, it enters into the duodenum. Then pancreas secrete pancreatic juices into the duodenum where digestion of the food occurs. Then from there, the food enters into the ileum, then cecum, then colon and rectum, and at last from after rectum, anus is there from which the undigested food is released out of the body. Now here is the brief explanation. Now we will discuss completely. In mouth, the food is broken down into the smaller particles by the help of teeth. Teeth are present in the mouth and the bigger pieces of the food, they are chewed with the help of teeth and are broken down into the smaller particles or smaller pieces. This food in the mouth is mixed with saliva from the salivary gland because the salivary gland secretes saliva. So teeth helps or mix the food with the saliva by the help of tongue. Then in saliva, salivary amylase is present which acts on the food and it converts the starch into the simple sugar. Means the food which we contain, it contains the starch. That starch is converted into the simple sugar, that is the maltose. Then from mouth, the food passes to the esophagus. Esophagus undergo peristaltic movement and from esophagus, the food enters into the stomach. There is no digestion of food into the esophagus. Only the esophagus undergo peristaltic movement, that is rhythmic contraction and relaxation movement to push the food forward towards the stomach. Now the entry of food comes into the stomach. In the stomach, gastric glands are present which secrete gastric juices and these gastric juices contain enzyme, that is pepsin. Apart from pepsin, certain other substances are also released by the gastric glands, that is hydrochloric acid or HCl and mucus. The role of pepsin is that it breaks down the protein. Pepsin acts on the proteins. Pepsin is released in the inactive form and when the pepsin is released, during that time HCl is secreted by the gastric gland. This HCl makes the medium acidic. This HCl makes the medium acidic and in this acidic medium, that inactive pepsin converts into active pepsin and it acts on protein and helps in digestion of proteins. Second thing is that the mucus which is released, this mucus, it helps in the lubrication as well as it protects the wall of the stomach from the action of acid, that is HCl. Because HCl is very strong acid, so when HCl is secreted to protect the cells of the stomach from damage, This mucus, it makes a very thick layer over the walls of the stomach so that the acid does not come in contact with the cells. Then the food passes into the small intestine, that is the duodenum part. The first part of the small intestine is the duodenum part. So here in the upper part of the small intestine is called as the duodenum. The food is mixed with the bile from the liver. That is, in duodenum, liver releases bile juice, and this bile juice is stored in the gallbladder. From gallbladder, this bile enters into the duodenum, and simultaneously pancreas secretes pancreatic juice. So these two secretions, they are poured into the duodenum. Now when the juices are released into the duodenum, then first of all, bile juice, it acts on the fat globules, larger fat globules, and it converts larger fat globules into the smaller globules. Larger fat globules are broken down into smaller globules, and this process is called as emulsification. Emulsification is meant to increase the surface area of the fat molecule so that the enzymes released from the pancreas in the pancreatic juice, they acts on the smaller fat globules and helps in digestion of the fat. Now what will happen, this pancreatic juice contain enzyme, that is trypsin and lipase. Trypsin is the enzyme, it acts on the proteins. Further, some proteins are there, so this trypsin acts on the proteins and digests the proteins into peptones and proteose. Then lipase enzyme, it breaks the fat globules into the smaller fat compounds called as fatty acids and glycerol. So after that, the food is passed further into the small intestine. Then the glands in the walls of the small intestine, they produces intestinal juices. The enzymes of the intestinal juices, they convert carbohydrates into glucose. Okay, so carbohydrates are further, if certain carbohydrates are left which are not digested, they are digested by the intestinal juices. So intestinal juices convert carbohydrates into glucose. Fats are converted into fatty acid and glycerol. Proteins are converted to amino acid. The peptones and proteins which were there, they are converted into amino acids. So fatty acids, glycerol, amino acids and glucose, these are the simpler form of carbohydrate, fats and proteins. So here the digestion is completed. The complex food compounds, they are broken down into the simpler forms. The walls of the small intestine, they have several finger-like projections, and these finger-like projections, they are called as villi. These villi are richly supplied with blood vessels. So they increases the surface area for absorption of the digested food. These villi, they are supplied with blood vessels. So when the food passes through the villi, the movement of the villi increases the absorption of digested food. The digested food is absorbed by the blood present in the villi, and then it is transported to all the cells of the body. Then the undigested food which is left in the intestine, that is passed into the large intestine. Now in large intestine, the major role of large intestine is absorption of water, and the waste material is stored for some time before the removal through the anus. Now next topic is respiration. Respiration in organism. So respiration is the process by which food is burnt in the cells. We say food is burnt, that means oxidation of food takes place in the cells with the help of oxygen. This oxygen is taken or utilized and energy is released. That means whatever the food is received by the cell, the food, that is glucose, which is received by the cell, and this glucose is received by the cell after digestion through blood. Okay, when the food is digested, the carbohydrate is converted into glucose, and then that glucose is absorbed by the blood in the villi. So when this glucose enters into the blood through villi, then it is transported to each and every cell of the organism body, and then these cells, they utilize oxygen to break down that glucose to get the energy or to release the energy. Now the energy released during respiration is used to make the ATP molecule. ATP is the energy currency, adenosine triphosphate, from ADP molecule, and inorganic phosphate is released. That means ADP plus inorganic phosphate, it forms the ATP. Energy is stored in the cells in the form of ATP, and this ATP molecule formation, it occurs in the mitochondria. That means energy is released by the mitochondria. That's why mitochondria is called as the powerhouse of the cell. So when the cell needs ATP is broken down, when the cell is in the requirement of energy, during that time this energy currency ATP is broken down in the presence of water and to form ADP, and energy is released. ADP is the simpler form of ATP. Now here, type of respiration. Types of respiration, there are two main types of respiration, that is the aerobic respiration and anaerobic respiration. Aerobic respiration includes utilization of oxygen. Anaerobic respiration includes absence of oxygen. Okay, in anaerobic respiration oxygen is not utilized, so that's why we call it as anaerobic respiration. Now we'll discuss these one by one. Aerobic respiration, it takes place in the presence of oxygen and produces more energy due to the complete breakdown of the carbon compounds. Whatever the food is there, that is glucose or any sugar, carbohydrate, that is completely broken down into carbon dioxide. That's why the energy released by aerobic respiration is maximum. And apart from carbon dioxide, water is also released and energy. It takes place in most of the organism body. In aerobic respiration, glucose is converted into pyruvate, that we call as pyruvic acid, in the cell cytoplasm. This process occurs in the cell cytoplasm. First, this glucose is converted into the simpler form, that is pyruvate, and this is done in the cell cytoplasm. After that, this pyruvate is converted into the carbon dioxide, water and energy in the mitochondria. That means further breakdown of pyruvate occurs in mitochondria and formation of carbon dioxide, water and energy is done. So now look over here, the reaction, that is glucose in the presence of oxygen, it occurs in cytoplasm. There is formation of pyruvate, and this pyruvate, it enters inside the mitochondria, and in mitochondria, in the presence of oxygen, this pyruvate is converted to carbon dioxide, water and energy is released, and this energy is released in the form of ATP. Now next we discuss about the anaerobic respiration. Anaerobic respiration, it takes place in the absence of oxygen, and when oxygen is less, so here we say that the complete breakdown of the carbon compound does not take place. So when the complete breakdown of carbon compound or sugar is not there, then we say that the less energy is released. The end product is the lactic acid, maybe lactic acid or ethanol, carbon dioxide and energy. It takes place usually in the muscle cells and yeast. When lactic acid is formed, then we say that it occurs in the muscle cells, and when alcohol is formed, then it is in the yeast cells. In anaerobic respiration, in muscle cells, glucose is converted into pyruvate. This occurs as usual as we have studied in the Aerobic respiration also, glucose is first converted into pyruvate or pyruvic acid, and then this pyruvate enters into the mitochondria in aerobic respiration where the breakdown of pyruvate occurs. But over here oxygen is absent, so this pyruvate is does not enter into the mitochondria, and it forms lactic acid, and this lactic acid is formed in the cell cytoplasm only, and it gets deposited in the cell cytoplasm. And when it gets deposited in the cell cytoplasm, then it is responsible, or it usually occur in the muscle cells, so we say that it is responsible for cramps in the muscles. Now look over here for the example. This glucose in presence of oxygen, it occurs in the cytoplasm. This glucose is converted into pyruvate. Now in absence of oxygen in the muscle cells, this pyruvate, it convert into lactic acid, and a small amount of energy is released. Now in anaerobic respiration in yeast, glucose is converted to pyruvate. Same, in the absence of oxygen, pyruvate is converted into alcohol, that is ethanol, carbon dioxide and energy. Ethanol is another carbon compound, so we say that the complete breakdown of pyruvate has not taken place. Small amount of carbon dioxide is released and small amount of energy is released. Now we see over here the equation. Glucose in presence of oxygen in the cell cytoplasm is converted into pyruvate. But in absence of oxygen in yeast, alcohol, carbon dioxide and energy is formed. Now look over here the brief flow chart about the breakdown of glucose by various pathways. First, glucose in the cell cytoplasm in the presence of oxygen is converted into pyruvate, and a small amount of energy is released. Now this pyruvate, when we talk about in the presence of oxygen, it occurs in mitochondria, and the complete breakdown of pyruvate occurs, result in formation of carbon dioxide, water and energy. This energy is highest, or we say it is maximum. Then in muscle cells, oxygen, when we say this oxygen is absent, or we say that the concentration of oxygen is less, then lactic acid is formed. This lactic acid is deposited in the cell cytoplasm only, and then less amount of energy is released. This lactic acid deposition in the cell cytoplasm is responsible for causing muscle cramps. Then we talk about the absence of oxygen in yeast. That means oxygen is completely absent, and this occurs in the yeast, that this pyruvate, it gets converted into ethanol. It is a carbonic compound, formation of carbon dioxide, and less amount of energy is released. So we say that in mitochondria sufficient amount of oxygen is there, then the energy released is maximum, and where in the absence, or we say the less oxygen is there, or the oxygen is absent, then less energy is released. So that's all for the respiration.